The Fiery Faith, the story of Hananiah and Daniel's companions. Prologue. At a pivotal moment in history. The annals of history are illuminated by certain bright stars whose brilliance never dims, even through the fog of time. One such radiant narrative was written during the period of the Babylonian exile, when faithful servants of God refused to bow to the tyranny of Nebuchadnezzar and faced the blazing furnace and the lion's den for the sake of their belief. This is the story of 4 young men who altered the course of history. One of them is the prophet Daniel A.S., whose name is a shining beacon for us. But today's tale revolves around his 3 companions, who, alongside Daniel A.S., proved that the power of faith is greater than any worldly power. These 3 young men, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, are among the unsung heroes of the children of Israel, whose loyalty not only brought a tyrant king to his knees, but also established an eternal example of steadfastness for generations to come. Chapter 1. The Fall of Judah and the Beginning of Captivity. The year was 605 BC. The kingdom of Judah, located in what is now Palestine, was going through a precarious time. The great superpower of the era, the Babylonian Empire, under the leadership of its ruthless king, Nebuchadnezzar II, was eager to dominate the world. Nebuchadnezzar besieged and conquered Jerusalem. Following this victory, in keeping with tradition, the conquering king ordered that young nobles, princes, and gifted youths from the conquered nation be taken from Jerusalem to Babylon. The purpose was to educate these young men in the Babylonian culture, language, and sciences, preparing them for service in the king's court. It was a psychological warfare tactic designed to turn the future leaders of the conquered nation into allies of the conqueror. Among these youths were 4 talented, handsome, and intelligent boys. Their original Hebrew names were Daniel, meaning God is my judge; Hananiah, meaning the Lord is gracious; Mishael, meaning who is like God; Azariah, meaning the Lord is my help. Upon arrival in Babylon, these young men were placed under the care of the king's chief official, Ashpenaz. Ashpenaz's job was to arrange for their upbringing, education, and training. The king had given clear orders that they were to be served the same food and wine allotted to the king himself. This was an honor, akin to becoming part of the royal household. This food included rich and expensive meats, wine, and other delicacies that were part of Babylonian royal tradition. But here arose their first test. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, together with their leader Daniel A.S., decided they would not defile themselves with the king's food and wine. The reason was not that the food was bad, but that they wanted to remain obedient to God's law, the Torah. According to the Torah, the meat of certain animals was forbidden, such as pork. Moreover, this meat was often first offered to idols as sacrifices before being served at the king's table. Eating such food was a violation of God's commands and akin to idolatry. Furthermore, excessive wine was also unacceptable to them. Daniel A.S. approached Ashpenaz and requested that he and his 3 companions be given only vegetables and water. Initially, Ashpenaz was afraid. If these young men appeared pale and weak compared to the others, the king would have his head. But Daniel A.S. asked for a trial of just 10 days. Ashpenaz agreed. For 10 days, the 4 young men ate only vegetables and drank water. At the end of 10 days, when Ashpenaz examined them, they appeared miraculously healthier, stronger, and better nourished than all the other young men who had eaten the royal food. This event won Ashpenaz's confidence, and he allowed them to continue with this simple diet. These 4 youths were also exceptional in their intelligence and diligence. God gave them knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. After 3 years of training, when they were presented before King Nebuchadnezzar, he found them 10 times wiser and more discerning than all the magicians and enchanters in his entire kingdom. Consequently, the king appointed them to high positions in his court. Thus, these faithful servants of God passed their initial test. They proved that whoever trusts in God is never let down. Chapter 2. The King's Dream and the Wisdom of the 4 Youths. One night King Nebuchadnezzar had a strange and disturbing dream. He woke up, remembering that he had a dream but forgetting its content and meaning. He was deeply troubled. He summoned all his wise men, magicians, enchanters, and astrologers, and demanded that they not only interpret the dream but first tell him what he had dreamed. He reasoned that if they were truly experts, they should know the dream itself. The courtiers apologized, saying it was an impossible request that no one could fulfill for the king except the gods, and they do not live among humans. This angered the king, and he issued a decree that all the wise men of Babylon should be executed. This decree applied to everyone, including Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and Daniel, as they were also among the king's advisors. When Daniel learned of this, he asked the king's guard, Arioch, for an audience with the king. Daniel then asked the king for some time so he could interpret the dream. Daniel went home and gathered his 3 companions, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Together, the 4 of them prayed to God for mercy, asking him to reveal the dream and its interpretation to them, so that they and their fellow wise men might be spared. During the night, God revealed the mystery to Daniel in a vision. Daniel immediately praised and thanked God. Then he went to Arioch and asked to be taken to the king. Before the king, Daniel said, "No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." He then told the king the dream he had forgotten. Daniel explained that the king had seen an enormous, dazzling statue. Its head was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. Then a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay, smashing them to pieces. The entire statue was broken and became like chaff, swept away by the wind. Then the rock became a huge mountain that filled the whole earth. Then Daniel interpreted the dream. He said the king, the head of gold, was the greatest king. After him, a second kingdom, silver, would arise, inferior to his. Then a third kingdom, bronze, would rule over the whole earth. A fourth kingdom, iron, would be as strong as iron, crushing and breaking everything. But just as the feet were partly iron and partly clay, this kingdom would be strong but also divided. In the end, the God of heaven would set up a kingdom that would never be destroyed, a kingdom that would endure forever. Hearing this, the king was astounded. He acknowledged before Daniel, "Surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings." He rewarded Daniel with gifts and high honors and appointed him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and chief prefect over all the wise men. At Daniel's request, the king also appointed Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to administrative positions over the province of Babylon. Thus, all 3 were elevated to high offices. This event further strengthened the deep friendship, brotherhood, and mutual trust between the 4. They knew the secret of their success was their collective faith and trust in God. Chapter 3: The Golden Image and the Ultimate Test of Faith. Time passed. King Nebuchadnezzar's power and pride grew daily. He was intoxicated by his own greatness and might. He built a huge golden image. The statue was 60 cubits, about 27 meters high, and 6 cubits, about 2.7 meters wide. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then he issued a proclamation commanding all the high officials, governors, satraps, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all other provincial officials to attend the dedication ceremony. When all the people were assembled, a herald loudly proclaimed, "Peoples, nations, and men of every language, you are commanded, as soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." So as soon as the music played, all the people of every nation and language fell down and worshipped the golden image. But in that crowd there were some who did not bow. They were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They blatantly disobeyed the king's command. Some Chaldeans seized the opportunity and went to the king to report this. They said, "O king, live forever. You have issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, who pay no attention to you, O king. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up." Hearing this, the king flew into a rage. He ordered that Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah be brought before him immediately. When they stood before him, the king asked, "Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, is it true that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made when you hear the music, that is good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" This was the moment when history held its breath. The entire court was silent. Everyone watched to see how these three young men would respond. They had an easy opportunity to save their lives. They could have just uttered a single word, but they prioritized their faith over their lives. They replied to the king with great respect and courage. "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If the God we serve is able to deliver us from the blazing furnace and from your majesty's hand, he will deliver us. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." This answer infuriated the king beyond measure. His face twisted with rage. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then he commanded some of his strongest soldiers to bind Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah and throw them into the blazing furnace. The furnace was so hot that the flames killed the soldiers who carried out the order. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, firmly tied, fell into the blazing fire. Chapter 4. The fourth man in the fire and the miracle. But then a miracle occurred. The king, watching the furnace, was stunned. His eyes widened in disbelief. He leaped to his feet and exclaimed to his advisers, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, O king." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." The scene was unbelievable. The 3 young men were not only alive, but they were walking around calmly in the midst of the fire. The ropes that bound them had burned away, but the fire had not even touched their clothes. There was not a single smell of smoke on them. And with them was a 4th figure, whom the king described as being like a son of the gods. It was an angel of God, sent to protect them. The king approached the mouth of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, their Babylonian names, servants of the Most High God, come out. Come here." So Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah came out of the fire. All the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisers crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies. Their hair was not singed, their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. It was a living miracle. Witnessing this, King Nebuchadnezzar was awestruck. He said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants." They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Then the king issued a decree. People of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will be cut into pieces, and their houses will be turned into piles of rubble, for no other god can save in this way. Afterward, the king promoted Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to even higher positions in the province of Babylon. This event is not just a tale of their steadfastness. It delivered a message to the entire Babylonian Empire that the power of the one true God is above all powers. They maintained their loyalty solely to their God, and in return, God not only saved them but also increased their honor. Chapter 5. Life after faithfulness and their legacy. The faithfulness of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah proved to be a turning point in the Babylonian Empire. After this event, King Nebuchadnezzar issued another decree acknowledging the greatness of the God of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Although he did not become a full monotheist, he certainly admitted that the God of the Jews was alive and could perform miracles. The three men spent the rest of their lives in Babylon. They continued to play important roles in the Babylonian administration alongside Daniel, A.S. Their faith and integrity earned them equal respect among the people and in government circles. They never compromised their faith, no matter how attractive the opportunities were. Their legacy is not limited to their nation alone. This story is recorded in the book of Daniel in the Hebrew Bible Old Testament, and is revered by Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. In Islam, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are also held in high esteem. Although the Quran does not mention their names explicitly, they are discussed in commentary tafsir and historical traditions. They are counted among the righteous and pious servants who stood up to a tyrannical ruler for the sake of Tawheed, monotheism. Their story is a guiding light for believers of every era. It teaches steadfastness in faith, to remain firm in one's faith even in the most difficult circumstances. The power of community. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah always stood together. Their strength lay in their unity. Trust in God. They knew that whatever the outcome, God does not disgrace those who remain faithful. Not bowing to pride. They did not compromise their principles even before the most powerful king in the world. Epilogue and eternal lesson. The story of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah is not merely a historical event. It is a symbol of the human spirit's immense power that never yields to oppression and tyranny. This story tells us that true loyalty should not be to a king, a country, or a system, but to one's conscience, one's principles, and one's God. In today's age, when our loyalties are increasingly divided, when material benefits and fears dominate our decisions, the tale of these three young men reminds us that success in the hereafter lies in not compromising our faith under worldly pressure. That fiery furnace still exists today, perhaps in a different form: social pressure, economic hardship, political oppression, or psychological torment. But the lesson is the same. Whoever trusts in God, God will save them from every fire and grant them new life. The lamp of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah's faithfulness still burns brightly today for every human being who says, "Our God is able to deliver us, but even if he does not, we will still remain faithful."